Hi, I'm Teresa Powell, and I am with Todd Novosel with NFM Lending, and he's going to be answering a few questions that many buyers have about the closing process and beyond. All right, Todd, so just have a couple questions. The first one is, what are the typical closing costs that buyers and sellers need to prepare for? I know you typically do on the buy side, but there are a couple things that sellers I know may need to cover for a buyer in a transaction. And who is usually responsible for paying? I know we had talked about VA in another segment, like something like the termite fee or things like that. Can you give me some insight about those closing costs?
Yeah, so good questions. Typically speaking, buyers, their closing costs, which would cover the lender fees, their appraisal on that home, title related expenses, and third party related fees that we or the title company require. Somewhere between the neighborhood of $3,500 and $4,000. In this environment, based on where interest rates are, most consumers are also spending a little bit of extra money to buy that interest rate down to give them a better interest rate to start for a better payment. So good range, I would say, between $3,500 and maybe $6,000, where we have some play to give a better interest rate.
Now, are you seeing buyers ask any sellers to cover these? I know we had seen it in the past, and then we had all the bidding wars. Are you starting to see that come back into play with closing
Yes.
cost concessions?
Yeah, with rates coming up the way that they are, the buyer pool is not as strong as it was. So now's a really good time to buy, just because the buyers can actually ask for things to be covered, and they can take that $4,000 to $6,000 and actually include that in their offer, where the sellers will pay money towards their closing fees, which ultimately reduces their overall cash to close.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I have one more question. And how do you continue to support buyers after they close? Support them with their mortgage or maybe questions or refinance? And are there any follow-up services that they should know about?
Yeah, so I've been doing this a long time, and I just believe in taking care of people. And I don't look at a transaction as simply a file and another closing. I do look at it as that there's a person, somebody attached to that, there's a life and a story.
You're
So,
relationship based. That's what
yeah,
I love about you.
absolutely. So I do like to stay in touch with my clients. I typically like to follow up with them a couple times a year. Right now, I'm a little bit more engaged with those clients because they're buying at high interest rates, and a part of their closing is our 5-year refinance pledge, where that client can come back and refinance with no lender fees, no appraisal fee. So when the rates do drop enough to where it makes sense to spend money to refinance that mortgage, get a better interest rate and a better payment, I'm proactive in reaching out to them.
Now, I think real quick, I don't mean to interrupt, with that 5-year rate pledge, I noticed that, a lot of new construction, sometimes their interest rates are more competitive, but they don't offer that 5-year rate pledge. So long term, I mean, that just seems like a win. Do you find a lot of buyers that, are they're taking advantage of that 5-year rate pledge, and they're starting to inquire, especially as our rates have come down, these last few months?
Yeah, it does add up. That savings is around $2,300.
Wow.
And lender fees and appraisal fees that are saved in the future. So while an in-house builder lender might offer some incentives to use their own lender, and they pay money for that, ultimately when they come to refinance, they're going to spend that full amount when it comes time to refinance. So some of that savings is actually just pushed down until they refinance, and they're going to spend even more. So.
Yeah, which especially if they get a lower rate now and then they can refinance, without all those added fees, they're saving.
Yeah.
So long term, I'd rather pay a little bit more for maybe a year or 2 years or 3, and then have the last 20 something years, at a lower interest rate, because
Correct.
taking advantage of that rate pledge.
Yep, absolutely.
So, sounds like a win.
And we're pretty competitive, so we can usually offer a little bit of a better deal than the in-house builder lender as well.
Yeah, plus, one thing that my clients always appreciate is that you're always available to answer questions. I mean, I know I've texted you in the evenings, weekends, and sometimes on vacation, but when buyers want to have answers to these questions, and we'd rather give them the information that they need now so that they're not stressing about, these things later.
Availability is important, and I try to make myself available even on vacation.
Personal relationships.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more mortgage tips, and please feel free to reach out anytime if you have any questions.